one of the counselors at Finger Lakes Community College. We're just going to go over financial aid and just a brief overview of the application process and what you may need to think about and do before the start of next year. All right, so what is financial aid? It can be complicated to understand because there's a lot that goes into a student and seeing if they're eligible or not, and there's multiple applications that a student would have to fill out. But for the most part, financial aid is funding for students and families that help pay for college. Funding is used toward a student's cost of attendance or the COA, and that includes tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. What we have are indirect fees, indirect costs, and direct costs. Direct costs typically will be tuition and fees, so that's what the school or institution charges. And then everything else that may come out of pocket would include room and board, books and supplies, the personal expenses, and transportation. So the expected family contribution, that is an indicator that you will see towards the end of the FAFSA application. So the federal government created this equation to determine how much a family or a student can contribute to the educational expenses. So towards the end of the FAFSA application, there may be a weird number. Based off of that number, the federal government uses it to see if a student may be eligible for certain federal financial aid programs. So that would include the federal Pell Grant, the federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loan, the SEOG grant, which stands for the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, federal work study, and a few other programs that FLCC may not participate in, but other schools might. So what is financial need? So that includes the cost of attendance. So again, the tuition fees and other expenses that may come out of pocket, minus the expected family contribution. So the indicator or the number that you'll see towards the end of the FAFSA, and then you would get your financial need. So the sources and types of financial aid. So that includes federal financial aid, state aid, college and universities, private sources, and employers. So when it comes to colleges and universities, they may have their own institutional grants or scholarships. And it's really important for students to connect with the universities that they're interested in attending to see what types of scholarships they may offer and the deadlines for those scholarships. Private sources could include outside scholarships. So let's say if you attend church, does your church have scholarships? Are there any nonprofit organizations in your area that have scholarships that students can apply to? And then with employers, I would say check with your HR department. Typically, some do provide tuition or fee waivers for dependents. Even if you are an adult and you want to go back to school, you might be interested in seeing if your employer can help cover the cost of taking courses that kind of relate to your area of business. So again, the types of aid include grants. Typically, they're need-based, and we call them gift aid. Scholarships, which can be need and merit-based. Merit stands for pretty much your grades and GPA. It also includes your SAT or ACT scores. Federal work study, which is a need-based self-help program. Self-help pretty much stands for what a student can do in order to financially just prepare themselves or to help pay for the cost of college. Federal loans are included under the self-help umbrella as well. So both, well, not both, but the subsidized loan is need-based, but the unsubsidized loan is not need-based. So I find that some students may qualify for both loans, or a student may only qualify for the unsubsidized loan because they do not have what we call any unmet need. And then there are private loans. So private loans would be your Sallie Mae loans, Discovery loans, or if there's a loan through your banking institution. They're a little bit different than the federal loans. You'll have to do a little bit more research to see what the interest rates will be. Generally, the private loans will have a higher interest rate than the federal loans, and they might not have as many forgiveness or payment plan options in case the student finds that they cannot pay their monthly bill. So federal student aid pretty much is the largest source of financial aid. It's awarded primarily on the basis of financial need. A student must apply each year by completing the FAFSA application. And if you don't know, the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And eligibility requirements must be met. So these are some of the federal aid programs that I listed earlier. It includes the federal Pell Grant, the Iraq-Afghanistan Service Grant, the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, so FSEOG, the Teacher Education Assistance for College and Higher Education, or the TEACH Grant. Again, federal work study, the federal direct student loans, so subsidized and unsubsidized, and then the direct plus loan. The plus loan is different than the federal student direct loans. The plus loan is a loan where parents can apply. The application process is different than just filling out the FAFSA. If you're a parent, there is a credit check, and based off of your credit status, your application can either be approved or declined. Not to get so much into this loan, but if you come into a situation where you feel like you will have to borrow on behalf of your child, but you're worried about your credit, there are certain things that you can do to see if you would become eligible. For more information, I recommend just heading over to the studentaid.gov website to find more information about how one qualifies, and if not, what are some things that you can do in order to have your application be reviewed again. So when it comes to state aid, typically there's residency requirements. For New York State, it's generally about a year. Depending on the type of state aid, it can be based on merit or need. The New York State Tuition Assistance Program grant typically is based on need and not so much merit, although in order for students to maintain both federal and state aid, they must meet certain GPA and credit requirements each year. If they do not meet those requirements, then they can be in jeopardy of either becoming ineligible for their federal and state aid, and if that's the case, they would have to go through the process. When it comes to New York State financial aid, typically they want a student and parents to complete the FAFSA first, then head over to the New York State website to complete the New York State student aid payment application. And if you are a student looking to attend college out of New York State, you may want to look into the college that you're attending or plan to attend and see what their residency requirements are, or if they offer any grants or scholarships to out-of-state students. So for colleges and universities, excuse me, award aid based on merit and need. So again, we're looking at not only the federal and state financial aid programs, but we're also looking at a college's own grants and scholarships. Aid may be gift aid or self-help aid. So again, it could be a specific loan. It could be another type of scholarship or grant. Typically, colleges and universities will use the FAFSA information, mostly the expected family contribution, to see what a student's need is. And if they have a high need, then they may qualify for certain scholarships that they offer. Or you may have a college or university have their own scholarship application. For example, FLCC, through the FLCC Foundation, there's a separate application students can use to apply for scholarships through us. There's a different deadline. For FLCC, we have a recommended deadline of students applying for the FAFSA by March 1st. And then the FLCC Foundation scholarship application will be available on a different date. But we do base the FAFSA on some of our scholarships. Typically, for example, if a student is a first-year freshman and they meet those requirements, they have their application in, I believe, by March 1st, their FAFSA in by March 1st, then they can qualify automatically for a scholarship. And then again, deadlines and requirements vary by institutions. So students, is really, really important as you plan that you start noting when colleges and universities, when their application deadlines are, when their FAFSA and TAP application deadlines are. That way you're not missing out on any other institutional aid opportunities. So private sources, again, it's different scholarship organizations and foundations, businesses, churches, any civic organizations, charitable organizations. Again, their deadlines are going to vary as well. I would say this is a really great time to start researching private and local resources. I always think there's a hierarchy when it comes to where students should search first for scholarships that are outside of the college. And I would start local. So local would include your own school district. It would include, again, those organizations that are listed above. There is a resource that students can use, and a student should never have to pay to search for scholarships because generally the applications are free. This resource is Rochester Area Community Foundation. The headquarters is based in Rochester, but they're a really great organization that actually pulls in information and scholarships for not only Monroe County, but Ontario, Yates, Seneca, and I believe a few others. So pretty much the counties that are within Western New York. Students will have to make an account online. So it'll be a username and a password, and they can tailor their search based off of, are they a high school senior? Are they already in college? What's their area of study? And it will narrow it down to scholarships within their county of residence. And students can see if they're eligible for them. Typically with them, the applications are due April 15th, but with COVID, I know things have changed. So just keep an eye out on the deadlines. And the amount can vary. Some offer 1,000 per year, some offer 500. It just depends on what that organization would like to offer to the student. So employers, again, checking in with your human resource department to see if they have any tuition or fee waivers, or will they reimburse you. It doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes there's hidden benefits that we don't always realize that we have. But I think it's a great way to kind of cut down on the cost of college. So, you know, anything will help. And I know, you know, with COVID, things are a little bit different, but, you know, if you're fortunate enough to, you know, still be working where you've been working for the past couple of years, you know, definitely see if they do offer, or if you know that they have offered tuition or fee reimbursements in the past, I would double check to make sure that they're still doing that for the upcoming year. So applications that you need to file. Now, the FAFSA application came out this October 1st. If you haven't applied yet, that is okay. You have plenty of time before the start of next year. So I've listed the links below. So the first application that you're going to file is the FAFSA. Just be aware that there are a lot of scam websites out, especially due to the pandemic. If you run into a situation where you get towards the end of a FAFSA and they're trying to charge you a fee, just know, again, free is in the title of the FAFSA, so you shouldn't have to pay for anything. I remember a few years ago, a student came running into my office and they were like, Miss Olivia, they're asking for $50. What do I do? And I tell them to not do anything. And pointed them, you know, to the correct website. So please make sure you're clicking on the official websites, not ads at all. After that, you're going to complete the student aid payment application through New York State. Now, this is really hard to miss if this is your first time filing a FAFSA. Now, towards the end of the application, there's going to be a confirmation page, which will give the student and parent an overview of what aid programs their child may be eligible for, on top of the expected family contribution. Now, there is a link to the New York State payment application. It should be in a blue box towards the left-hand side, unless they changed it for this year. But make sure that you click on it. You'll be redirected to the New York State HESC website. From there, if this is a student's first time applying, they'll have to create a username and a PIN. If you unfortunately click out of that confirmation page before you can click on the link, you'll have to wait about 3 to 5 business days for the FAFSA to process first before the student has access to the New York State application. The reason why they can't apply right away if they click out of that confirmation page is because some of the information from the FAFSA gets transferred over to the New York State application. There's the Excelsior Scholarship Program, which I will get into more about later within the presentation. If any of you have seen the news, recently, there's talks of it not being available after this semester. But again, I'll go over that later within the presentation. And then there's the institutional application. So again, for example, FLCC, foundation scholarship applications, or any other applications a school may have specifically for scholarships. So the first thing a student and parent would do is create their FSA ID. So this allows you to electronically sign the FAFSA. It's the easiest way versus printing out a signature page and then mailing it in and having to wait, 7 to 10 business days for it to process. You'll use this ID every single year. So students, keep in mind, you will be filling out a FAFSA every year. So if you plan on attending for 2 years, know you're going to be filling out your application for 2 years. If you're attending for 4 years, same thing, you're going to file every year that you're in school. If you're a student and you live with both of your parents, only one parent needs to create a username and password because only one parent needs to sign it. So both parents do not have to. Now there is a mobile app. Again, the username and password and the accounts are free, and they should always be free. The app is a convenient way that students can check on their financial aid status to fill out the application. The Department of Education made it a little bit easier for students to kind of keep track of, how much they borrowed in loans so far or how much they received in Pell. So I highly recommend, if you don't have a computer at home or a tablet, you can fill this out via your phone. So for this year, again, the application came out on October 1st. Please keep in mind that we use prior tax information. So you're going to be using your 2019 tax information. Now, if you do not have access to that information, like you didn't keep your forms, that's okay. There are ways that you can retrieve that information. I'll get a little bit into the data retrieval tool later in the presentation, but just know if you don't have it in front of you right now, that's fine. Typically for parent information, it's going to be custodial parent. So unmarried biological parents living together must combine income information as though married. If custodial parent has remarried, then a step parent must provide their information on the FAFSA as well. So to just go over this, so custodial is biological or adoptive parent, not a foster parent, not a legal guardian. Step parent, so again, if bio parent remarried, step parent must provide their tax and demographic information. And then if your parents are unmarried, they're going to combine their tax information as if they were married. So the data retrieval tool is the easiest way to complete the FAFSA application. It's voluntary, so you do have the option to say yes or no if you don't feel comfortable, but just keep in mind that this information is already available through the IRS, so it's nothing that they don't already have. It authenticates taxpayers' identity. If they're able to match your information to what they have, then you'll have the ability to transfer that over to the FAFSA application. So you do not pretty much have to enter any type of dollar amounts The dollar amounts that you would have to manually enter are things that typically aren't reported on the 1040, or they may be, but it's something that just it doesn't transfer over. It helps reduce errors. You know, I have done it before where I was looking at, you know, one year and I should have been looking at the other. It happens. But if you'd like to reduce that, especially if you're selected for a process called verification, where that just means that your financial aid office needs to verify that the information that's reported on the FAFSA is correct. Generally, if we see that your information transferred over from the IRS, we don't need to see your tax information or your W-2s unless there's other things going on with the FAFSA. But for the most part, it's an easy process if you're able to do it this way. So frequent FAFSA errors: social security numbers, parent marital status, income earned by both the parent and the step-parent, tax information, and asset information. So again, you're going to be looking solely at your 2019 information, not 18 and not 2020 when we get to that stage. So once you file, leave your application alone. If you do make a mistake, again, that's okay. Students have the ability to make corrections, but you may want to speak with your financial aid office just to be sure. If you do, again, get selected for verification, then your financial aid office will be making those corrections. So once you submit documentation to the office, you know, just leave the application alone, and then we'll take care of it from there. So special circumstances. Now, we understand that everyone has a different home life. Not everyone lives with their biological parent. Not everyone has the same job that they did in 2019 and now. So when it comes to special circumstances, we look at loss and reduction of income. So if you change your jobs, if you were laid off, if unfortunately you were injured on the job and you're now disabled, we take a look at that. If there was a one-time lump sum payment, so let's say there was a one-time, you know, retirement distribution or an inheritance that was only one time, we'll take a look at that as well. And then separation or divorce. Usually per financial aid office, the process is generally the same. For FLCC, we do have a form a student and a parent will need to complete. And then they'll have to provide certain tax information or work information. So if there was a change in the job, then we would want to see, you know, the most recent pay stub. If there was, you know, a layoff, then we would want to see like a letter from an employer that just indicates, you know, when was the last day of employment and then the last pay stub. But work with your financial aid office to see, you know, what their process looks like and when they'll accept the information. For FLCC, we don't begin looking at these forms until June 1st. So after you file, you'll receive your student aid report. A student would receive an email from the Department of Education just letting them know that their application was received and processed. After 3 to 5 business days, they should get a link to the student aid report that they can download. I believe it's a PDF. That student aid report will show, again, the expected family contribution. If there's any processing or error messages, so let's say if there's a signature that's missing or they got selected for verification, they'll notify the student. Colleges you indicated will receive your FAFSA. Generally, will receive it within 3 to 5 business days as well. If everything's all good to go, depending on your school, you may receive your award letter either by mail or electronically. If there's any errors or we need additional documentation, typically the school will reach out to you, whether it be by email, by snail mail, or via text message. Each college will send you an award letter. So again, it could be electronic, it could be paper. At FLCC, we do send paper award letters, but then we also send emails that let students know that they can review their awards via WebAdvisor. So the Excelsior Scholarship is or was, we're not too sure yet, Typically, it will pay the tuition balance after TAP, Pell, and other scholarships up to the cost of tuition per year. A student has to complete the FAFSA and the TAP application before they can complete the Excelsior application. GPA must earn passing grade of a D or higher, and a student must earn 30 credits each year in the student's program of study. Now, again, as of yesterday, there's been news reports about how the Excelsior scholarship may be coming to an end after the fall 2020 semester. It's not set in stone, but the reason why they're thinking that this scholarship program will come to an end is because of the pandemic and budgeting. Right now, you know, to be honest with you, I don't even know the state of the New York State budget, and I don't typically find out about this information until it's either in the news or they send us notifications once they make an announcement of it. But if it is available, it's only for a first associate's or first bachelor's degree. There can't be a break in attendance. This means that if a student attended college 1 year and they took a semester break, unfortunately, they wouldn't be eligible. The income guidelines for the 2021 year was $125,000 or less, and that's the household income. And then the post-graduation requirement is a student must live and work in New York State for a specific number of years, depending on how long they were in school and how long they received the scholarship. So if they received the scholarship for 2 years, then they must live and work in New York State for 2 years. If it's 4 or if it's 6, then 4 or 6 years. The New York State Educational Opportunity Program. This is a state-funded initiative that provides access and academic support and financial assistance. I have not heard any updates in regards to the EOP program, so I'm safe to say that this program may be safe when it comes to the budget. But the program is designed for students who need special academic assistance as well as financial aid. So typically a 70 to 85 GPA, so pretty much between a C and an A, and they must meet financial eligibility guidelines. The program is available to full-time matriculated students and incoming freshmen only. So when a student is getting ready to apply for school and you believe that you meet these EOP eligibility guidelines, I recommend that you put in an application. There's a little bit more that goes into these applications, so it's going to take some more time to review. So the sooner you do it, the better. So the support services typically include academic, career, and personal counseling, tutoring, financial assistance for non-tuition related expenses, so books and supplies, foster youth college success initiative. So if you're a student that is a foster youth, you're in the foster care system, you're eligible to receive additional services and funding. I would work with your school's EOP office to see how you go about the additional funding. I believe there may be a separate application, but I'm not too sure. And then typically there's a summer program. Usually it's about 3 weeks. I think it just depends on the college too. And with COVID, I'm not too sure how that's going to look in the future. If we're all able to be back on campus, then bank on your child attending an EOP summer session. If not, it could be virtual, but just know that something would be provided where students have the opportunity to meet their classmates and kind of get a head start on the college experience. So this would be time for any questions. I think I briefly went over situations where students might not live with their biological parent. In this case, it's really important that a student reaches out to their financial aid office to see how they can go about completing their FAFSA application. For example, there's certain dependency questions that the FAFSA will ask a student. If a student doesn't meet any of those, excuse me, those questions, then there is a way they can fill out the FAFSA But typically a financial aid office will request additional information. So for example, with FLCC, we'll send a form to the student and we want to hear, the situation, what's going on. Is the reason why you don't live, with your parents is because they're no longer here. They've passed. Is the household abusive? Does someone have custody of you but not legal guardianship? So we understand there's different situations and we want to be able to help students to, apply for financial aid and become eligible for aid. So again, if there's any questions in regards to that, reach out to the financial aid office. So this is my contact information. My phone number is 585-785-1625. My email address is my first name, so Olivia.Baycott@flcc.edu. And our fax number is 585-394-0635. Our address is 3325 Marvin Sands Drive, Canandaigua, New York, 14424. So even if you're a student that does not plan on attending or applying to FLCC, that is okay. I'm available to help you and to answer your questions. Same thing with parents. If you're unable to contact a specific school, you can always contact me and I can help you with that process. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just let me know if you can see me.
Can see ya.
Okay, perfect. So anyone that's sitting in the presentation now, if you have questions for me, you can definitely go ahead and ask.
Olivia, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And you might have touched on this. I had to go run real quick and say goodnight to my kids. So sorry, I missed like maybe a couple minutes of it. Not sure if you went over for students who live with one parent, like a custodial versus non-custodial and a step parent, like how does that, and whose income do they use, that type of stuff?
So I'm trying to think of a way to keep it simple without being too confusing. So if it's a student that has a legal guardian, they are considered independent on the FAFSA, so they won't report their legal guardian's information at all. It will just be the student. If a student has a foster parent and just a foster parent, they're considered an independent student as well. So they will only include their information, not their foster parent or parent's information. If it's a biological adoptive parent and it's just that parent, then they're going to provide their information. But if the biological or adoptive parent is married or has remarried, then that parent or step parent will report the information. If it's a non-biological step parent, but there was a divorce, then the step parent wouldn't, I believe, provide that information, if that makes sense.
So if the student is living with an ex-step parent, they would be more of an independent and not report anything but their own?
Not technically, unless they met some of that criteria. I would say they need to reach out to their financial aid office to see how they can go about that, because it's only biological and adoptive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about even if a parent is so say a child is living with their mother and she remarried, but they have equal custody. What gets reported? The mom and the stepdad, or the bio mom and the bio dad, or just the mom?
So if it's a student living with their biological mom and mom remarried, then it's going to be mom and step parent.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But then if it's a student whose parents have divorced or separated, but both parents have equal custody, I think generally we've gone by who the child lived with predominantly towards the end of the year, or who makes the most because they provide the most financially. That would be the parent that gets reported on the FAFSA. Yeah, I think that's how we typically have been looking at it. I don't really come across that quite often, but I think the couple times I have, it's been the parent that either makes the most or who the student was living with, I think, at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And any other questions? If not, that's okay. Again, you can always send me an email or call me. I typically work remote every other day, and it depends on the week. So, for example, tomorrow I won't be in the office, but I will be in the office Friday. And then the following week, I'm only in the office Tuesday and Thursday. Sean or Victoria, is there anything else you would want me to go over or clarify for students and parents?
I think that's it on my end. Sean,
Okay.
anything?
No, nothing on my end. I think it was great.
Okay, yay. I'm glad
Yes,
it
thank
makes
you so
sense.
much.
I know it can be confusing. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm glad you were able to attend. So if that's it, I guess I'll just hop off the meeting. And everyone else have a good night.
Thanks so
Thank
much. We
you.
appreciate it.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good night.
You
Bye.
too.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
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 Thank you.